Prefatory remarks to Chapter 13. Paragraph 176. As we advance on our spiritual journey, the truths, as they accumulate, become clearer and more convincing to the mind that can at all appreciate the excellence of interior wisdom. Another step brings us to the declaration that, however specious may be the appearance, the images or forms of matter enter not into the senses from without, which is but a fallacy of the natural man, for that the truth has an entirely different direction. The extracts, which thus confirm the doctrines of a spiritual influx in reference to natural life, are now laid before the reader, so clear and full as to preclude, it might almost be hoped, the necessity of any illustrative remarks upon the subject. Chapter 13. Physical influx is but an appearance, the creation of all things being through man's internal states of mind, and thence into the external or sensuous plane of the mind. Arcana Celestia, paragraph 775. The origins of all things is in this wise. All states of the mind, collectively as well as singly, are from the Lord. From him is the celestial state. By means of this, from him, the spiritual state exists. Through this, the natural, and through the natural, the corporeal and sensuous. And as each exists from the Lord, even so does it subsist. For according to the admitted truth, subsistence is a perpetual existence. They who hold any other origin for the existence of things, as do the worshippers of nature, who from the nature deduce their origins, cherish principles so deadly that even the fantasies of wild beasts might be pronounced more sane, and yet very many among these are men who in their own eyes seem to be preeminent in wisdom. Arcana Celestia 10367. The influx from the Lord is into the internal man where his heaven is, and through the internal man into the external where his world is. And because heaven is in the internal man, it follows that when this is opened, man is in heaven. For heaven is not a place, but in man's interior states of the mind. Arcana Celestia 3702. All states of goodness and of truth descend from the Lord, and ascend to him, that is, he is the first, and he is the last. For man was so created that the Lord's divine states of goodness and truth might descend through him to the ultimate forms of nature, and from them ascend to him, that so man might be the medium uniting the divine essence with the world of nature, and the world of nature with the divine essence. And thus man being the medium, nature in its very ultimate forms might live from the divine essence, which actually would be the case were man to live according to the divine order. From Arcana Celestia 3721. The natural mind is the ultimate state of order. It would appear indeed as if there were an entrance through this ultimate state from nature, and it does so appear because it is through man's natural mind that the states of heaven, in other words of the Lord, inflow and descend into nature, and through that same mind there is an ascent of the forms which belong to nature. But the entrance through the natural mind from nature towards the interior faculties is only an apparent or seeming entrance. It appears indeed to man as if the forms of the natural world entered by the bodily or outward senses and affected his interior faculties, and in this way there was an entrance from the ultimate state of order towards those faculties which are within. But that this is an appearance and a fallacy is from the general law that there can be no influx from that which is after into that which is prior as to a state. Or, to express the same thing in other words, that lower states of life cannot inflow into higher, or exterior states into interior, or in other words, the forms of the world and of nature into those states of the mind which belong to heaven and the human spirit. For the former are grosser, the latter purer, and the grosser, which belong to the external or natural man, exist and subsist from those which belong to the internal or rational man, and cannot affect the purer, but are affected by them. And from Arcana Celestia 4939. I was once raised up into heaven, and it seemed to me as if I was there as to my head, and as to my body beneath, and still lower as to my feet. From this I perceived how the higher and the lower regions of the human body correspond to the states of mind which are in the greatest man of heaven, and how they inflow the one into the other. How a celestial state of the mind, which consists in the goodness of love, and is in the first order, inflows into the spiritual state, which is truth produced by love, and the second in the order, and lastly into the natural state, which is the third in order. From this it appears that the natural states of the mind are as the feet on which the superior rest, for it is nature in which the states of goodness and truth, which belong to the spiritual world, terminate. And it is grounded in this that the whole of nature is a theatre representing the kingdom of the Lord, and that every single object in nature represents. This also is the reason that the subsistence of nature depends upon an influx according to this order, for without it, it could not subsist, no, not even for one moment. And from Arcana Celestia 8211. The morning watch in the Holy Scripture signifies a state of mental illustration and of salvation, and in an opposite sense, a state of thick mental darkness and of utter destruction. And the cause of these significations is that states of faith and of love in the other life are as the times of day in this world, that is, as the morning, midday, evening, and night, and therefore they correspond. There also these states of mind have nearly a similar variation as their corresponding states have in this world. The end and the beginning of the natural variations of the morning, and specify the day and dawn, for then the night terminates and the day begins. In that state of mind to which the morning corresponds, the good begin to be enlightened as to their states of faith, and to grow warm as to their states of charity. But on the contrary, the wicked then begin to have their minds obscured by falsities, and to grow cold by evils. Consequently, to them the morning is a state of mental darkness and of utter destruction, but to the former a state of mental illustration and of salvation. From these states in heaven, states of light and heat exist on earth, as well as states of darkness and of cold, which alternate every day and every year. For whatever exists in the natural world derives its birth and its cause from the states of mind which exist in the spiritual world, the whole of nature being nothing else but a theatre representing the kingdom of the Lord. This is the ground of correspondencies. True, it is that the variations of light and shade, as well as heat and cold upon earth, depend upon the difference of the sun's altitude according to the season of the year, the time of the day, and the region of the earth. But then these very causes, which approximate and in the natural world, are created in agreement with the states of mind which are in the spiritual world. For there is nothing in the natural mind which, supposing it to be in order, derives not its cause and its birth from the spiritual mind, that is, through the spiritual mind from the divine essence. From Arcana Celestia 2758. There is not a single object throughout nature but represents in some manner the kingdom of the Lord in general. For the natural kingdom derives its origin from the spiritual, there is not anything but has an origin prior to itself. Unconnected with its cause and so with its end, it could not exist, for being unconnected, it would in a moment perish and be annihilated. And from Arcana Celestia 2993. All things in the natural world derive their existence from truth, which is spiritual, as their cause, and from goodness, which is celestial, as their principle. And natural objects flow forth from them according to all the differences of goodness and of truth in the kingdom of the Lord. And in this way do they proceed from the Lord himself, the source of all goodness and truth. These positions cannot but seem strange, and especially to those who are either unwilling or unable to ascend in their thoughts beyond nature, and who, not knowing what a spiritual state of the mind is, do not acknowledge its existence.